challenges. And I want to bring on my panelists. If I can bring on Mike Datillo, he's the Director of Marketing Operations at Lexmark, and Jonice Hines is the Retail Media Lead at Georgia Pacific, and Michelle Shoemaker, she's Performance Marketing Manager at Amazon, Amazon and Retailer Media at Scott's Miracle Grow. Well, welcome, guys. How are you guys doing? Everyone all ready to go?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad to have you guys. And let's just start right off with and Michelle, why don't we start with you in terms of how are you guys sort of managing all of this and evaluating this, and let everyone know, what you guys are doing.
Okay, so I've been in retail media the past 3 or 4 years, so I've watched it grow. It's very different today than it was 3 years ago. And I think every organization handles it a little bit differently. The one I'm currently at is, I think as we look at our investment, right, we want to say which platform drives the most revenue, and we typically focus on that one. That being Amazon, quite frankly, in terms of capability, just overall reach, and the sphere that they influence both on and off platform is big. So that's been a priority for us. But then after that, it's customers that drive our business, but also customers that have well thought out digital platforms. So as we know, retail media is not all created equal. I think there's different places that the platforms are in terms of their growth. So I think that's one component of it. And then the retail negotiations is another component. So as our sales team goes in and has conversations with our retailers, like how can we use these investments that we're doing in these digital spaces to drive our retail negotiation conversations to say, hey, look, we're investing in you to help drive your business. How can we work together? Because as my colleagues will probably let you know, we're investing in these platforms, but we don't always get insight to all of the pieces of data. So they calculate things a little bit differently. They provide different types of targeting. And so it's not all created equal. There's not apples to apples in terms of evaluation. So a lot of different levers that you have to evaluate in the whole retail media area, I suppose. And then also too, thinking about how it integrates with your national media plans is really important as well.
Okay, well, and now, Mike, I know that you're very similar to Michelle in a lot of ways, and Jonice, you're a little different. So why don't we let Mike go next, and then we'll go to you for that.
Sure. Yeah, very similar setup for us. Very different product. Not lawn seed and fertilizer and those sorts of things, but we have hardware and supplies using kind of a razor blade model for our business, but actually very similar setup. So really looking at outlets that will help share conversion data. It's very important for us to help us understand who the customer is, who's buying our product, since our business model results in profit after the initial hardware purchase. And so understanding that audience, we don't necessarily want somebody who's going to buy the product and use the toner, throw it away, and buy another. We need someone who's going to buy additional toner down the line. So having programs that will help in sharing their data with us is very important to us to help understand if we've sold to the right customer segmentation, the right persona that is going to get the usage from the product that will meet the profitability that we're looking for. Amazon obviously is a big part of our business because of that reason. They do share a lot of their information with us, but also we have had some success with some of the retail outlets as well, and I think it's a gradual thing that I think as sales are shifting more online, we are getting more leverage through some of the online retailers to be able to share data and kind of collaborate with us to help meet the goals.
Yeah, and Jonice, I sort of inferred Amazon's not a big player for you guys.
I would say they're not a big player, so I should probably take a step back. My name is Jonice Hines. I lead retail media for Georgia Pacific. Most consumers don't necessarily know Georgia Pacific, but they know our brands. The biggest ones are Angel Soft Toilet Paper, Quilted Northern, Brawny, and Sparkle Paper Towels, and then Dixie. So I would say it's been very interesting for us during a pandemic to be selling paper products in which people are stocking up and air quote hoarding. So we're trying to manage that. So when we look at retail media, for us, it's a balance act with our retail partners in brick and mortar, but then also balancing those partnerships from an e-commerce and digital perspective. So working through that, and then obviously, like our competitive set, trying to make sure that we're producing as fast to supply consumer needs. So I would say while our partners here on this panel definitely do focus on Amazon, Amazon is one of our retail partners, but we are still balancing that out with the kind of brick and mortar that you shop at when you go grocery shopping or you do click and collect. So managing that holistically.
Right. And Mike, you sort of mentioned it a little bit that you are trying other networks besides Amazon. What ones are working for you, and what's the key thing? Like, I mean, I know attribution was something that you had talked about is important. Are you finding that with the other networks?
Yeah, it is a little bit hit or miss, to be honest with you. But we do have some success with some aspects. As an example, with Walmart, we have an affiliate program with Dell that's working well there. We are trying some new placements with Costco Digital, as well as Staples and Office Depot. So we're seeing success. Some of those we're still in the early stages on, but those are all partners who have some of those recently, kind of opened up to sharing more of that conversion and attribution data, such that we can kind of put together the whole picture to see not just what we're spending and the impressions that we're getting, but what sales are actually coming from that. And specifically for us, we have a pretty large product lineup, and so we're actually advertising online really a small percentage of that product lineup. And so we're also interested in attributions to the sale of that line that we're promoting, not necessarily other maybe organic sales that are happening for some of the other products that are being sold there. So those are some of the others that we've recently started working with, and starting definitely to see some success there as well.
Well, with Walmart, just to follow up, I mean, I know they've recently started with self-service, and that's something that, I mean, this Kenchu and Criteo, that seems to be a little bit more flexible. Is that definitely what you're looking for more of?
Yeah, for us, definitely anything where we can kind of see directly and not, relying on lots of different dashboards from different retailers, where we have to kind of go one at a time and look at those different data points. But having a platform like a Criteo or like a Kenchu, where you can kind of roll that up and see holistic views, do some compares as well. So for us, what we see sometimes is, we have maybe better AURs at certain retailers. And so maybe we'll focus there for certain time periods. There's seasonality too that's involved in there that some of those platforms will let you see in comparing retailers. And then also for us, again, not the initial buy, but the ongoing supplies and toner that are purchased. Sometimes we'll see that a particular retailer is better with business customers who buy more toner, and so we want to invest more there, not just for the hardware purchase, but the aftermarket, the toner purchases that come after that.
Right. And Janice, now what about you? What are you looking for in terms of other platforms outside of the that you talked about?
Yeah, so I would say that we bought our programmatic in-house about 2 years ago. So it's definitely given us an opportunity to have hands-on keyboard and manage that transparency across the board. So I would say our top priorities are data and being able to have full transparency. We do use platforms similar to Kenchu or Commerce IQ or any of those automation platforms. So being able to just see holistic buys on specific retailers and compare apples to apples performance and figure out where's the next best place to invest incremental investment is very helpful for us. So I would say data, and I think everybody's going to always answer data being very important, but data and transparency are the things that we look at. And then we do prioritize environments or platforms in which we can do the buying on our own, and then either have a rep or an external partner who helps us, but gives us the control where possible.
Well, and now in terms of like, I know you had mentioned Home Depot was another one, but it's are you getting are they built up the framework enough for you, or do you see that happening more? And is it going to be a necessity moving forward for any successful platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So as to the consumer, as a retailer, those margins are getting thinner and thinner. So all of the retailers need to supplement their buys with something else to make sure that they are still profitable. So it makes logical sense to monetize their data and sell their data and information within compliance to advertisers like ourselves and competitors. So I definitely say in the next 5 to 10 years, like, all of the major retailers are going to have some sort of retail media network, and it's going to be hard and important for advertisers to balance that and to understand, okay, everybody wants a piece of this pie, including national dollars. What is the best way that we both can work together and get what we both need, from a measurement standpoint, from a data standpoint, from a conversion standpoint, and balancing that out. So, and I would say in 2020, we've seen a lot of retail media networks forming and being built up. So yeah, Home Depot is definitely one of the latest ones. It'll be interesting to see how they shape compared to everybody else, and then what the point of differentiation will be.
Right. And for Michelle, what about you as far as where are you? I know a lot is Amazon, of course, but where else are you investing?
Yeah, so in the 2 CPG companies that I have worked for in my career, one of them really prioritized Amazon, Walmart, Target, Kroger, and I would say those 4 platforms do a really nice job. They've been trying to develop their capabilities for a few years and tend to be they're on a really good track. In my current life, those are retailers that we still invest in, and we're excited to test more and more. They're not necessarily our top tier because the home stores really are. As you think about lawn and garden, I think the challenge with the home stores is they're just not where the other retailers are. And it's probably the nature of their business, right? Their world is just not mass market like Walmart and Target. So where I think across the board, everyone does search okay. I think the home stores have a lot of growth to do in terms of their search capabilities, and all of that is self-managed. So I think you're going to see predominantly search as self-managed in retail media, right? That's where everyone's headed. It's display that you really have to go through the retailers to do those particular buys. So if you want to have banner ads, a trial campaign, or a retention campaign using that media, those are harder to evaluate because we don't have total control. I know Walmart has been saying for a few years that those are eventually going to go self-service. They haven't yet. So Amazon is the one platform that we can still run display and manage it within our 4 walls. And that's a comfortable place to be. But I would say after Amazon, I think Walmart hands down has the best capabilities. And truthfully, they're willing to partner on their reporting. I think their reporting is fairly robust. We definitely can use it. I feel good about it. But truly, as an organization, if I'm going to evaluate my ROI across all of my investments, I really probably want to use a marketing mix analysis with my internal teams, get the data that I need to whomever is running the analysis, to drown out the noise around all of the media to see which one is driving my business the most. What I use my reports for or to optimize like within campaigns themselves. So as Walmart gives me an analysis, I love that analysis to say, how can I make my next Walmart campaign better? I don't necessarily use that analysis to say, Walmart drove more business than Target, so I'm going to invest more in Walmart. I'm probably going to lean on my marketing mix analysis from my analytics team within my organization.
Well, that's definitely where I want to go next in terms of, and Janice, I'll ask you about this. And I know, especially with Amazon, you guys mentioned that you have a little bit more transparency there, but then again, isn't it more transparency within what they want you to see? It's for within that walled garden. And Janice, what do you think about that? Is that something that you are finding issues with?
I
wouldn't say we're finding issues with it. I think it's level setting expectations and rejiggering a partnership. So for me, if you go into a partnership with Amazon, with Walmart, with Kroger, with anybody, and it's transactional, you're only going to get something that's going to really benefit them. But if you position it as, hey, we want to grow together, these are our specific goals, we want to grow awareness, we want to drive conversion, how can we do that? I have found that they are more likely to not only just help you on their respective platforms, but help give you insights that can make it lift all boats, right? So lift just what's happening for you in the marketplace. So I think it's taking a step back from like a relationship standpoint and bringing them into the fold, not just sharing what they need to know, but sharing things that like, hey, this is what I'm seeing across the board. How can you guys help not just on your own ecosystem, but what ideas do you have so that we can see better performance across the board?
Right. And what about Mike for you in terms of dealing with that kind of looking for the transparency on what partners you can find that you really can, know that you're getting as much data as you can?
Yeah, I would agree on the transparency is, we really start off with what our main business driver goal is. And for us, right now, that's a return on ad spend that we look at. And then we look at the usage that comes from our products as we place them within those markets as well. And I think just being upfront about that, because oftentimes you're going to get ad plans that are recommended that don't have anything to do with your goals. They're looking to sell, brand presence and impressions and those sorts of things that may be fine if that's what your goal is. But if it's not, it's kind of a waste of time for both of you. So just being very transparent, helping them understand your business because different businesses operate very differently. And it's important for them to understand. As an example for us, we're losing money when we make that hardware sale. So we have to get the right customer set that we're going to make it up on the supplies afterwards. And it's important for them to understand and embrace that as well. So yeah, I think that the transparency up front, just, kind of getting them involved with this is how our business works and educating them on that. And ultimately for me, this is how I can invest more with you. If I'm successful in doing this, I can invest more. If I'm not, then, I'm going to invest elsewhere where they're going to work with me more. So, just making that mutually beneficial, conversation and relationship, I think is very important. And as was said before, being just honest with the relationship up front is good.
Right. And for Michelle, I know you sort of mentioned it a little bit, how you're trusting more your team, but can you add to that in terms of how are you handling, getting as much data as you can from these marketplaces?
I think it's really positioning yourself too as a bit of a partner with them. So making them better while they simultaneously make us better. So, it was hit on earlier that you do have to make it a strategic partnership and try to ask the right questions and push. Because if you don't ask, they won't give it to you. But if you let them know your rationale, your strategy, your thinking, a lot of times whomever you're working with within the retail media groups will go back to whoever they need to and try to get approval or see how they can provide that data. You still end up hitting a wall in some respects, but you can get better and better. So I've seen that with Walmart. I've definitely seen them be good partners. I've seen Roundel partner pretty well in that respect. I know Home Depot just sent out an email, it was like yesterday or, within the past few days saying that they want to build out their capabilities, their reporting capabilities. They hear the suppliers. We don't know what that looks like yet, but they're flagging that it's on their way. So the retailers are listening. I think it's when I talk about reporting within my organization, it's every media can be analyzed from a few different ways. So the metrics that they're using, the attribution windows that they're using, the calculations are all a little bit different across the board. I guess that's no fault of them. It's not a bad thing. It just makes it hard for us as suppliers to come up with that universal KPI because, I might run a Walmart campaign that they tell me it's a $20 ROAS or a $14 ROAS, but then Roundel is going to tell me I had a $75 ROAS. Like that's just not even within the same world to be able to evaluate Target versus Walmart. So that's where I think an internal analysis helps to determine ROI.
Right. Well, I want to have one more question for you guys, but just to remind everyone, again, if you have questions for any of these guys, just make sure you raise your hand and Steve will send you an unmute and then you can ask when we are finished with this. But basically, we're probably not going to have a universal KPI anytime soon, but of course we're going to continue, especially with no more cookies and all the regulations. It's going to be a part of our world. So what are your lessons learned? What do you think moving forward? What do you say you need to, this is the most important thing to keep doing to get the most success out of these networks? And Mike, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, like I said, I think really to get the most success out of the networks, it is understanding the audience of those networks, understanding the capabilities of those networks. So there's going to be different advertising options, if you will, or tactics that each of them will provide, and seeing are those the types of tactics that are going to work with your target audience within their network. And then again, just being upfront with the data that you kind of require. We actually implemented earlier this year a no data, no spend policy, and that was a big diversion from us from previous leadership of we've got to play here because they're X% of the market, and it's, well, if we can't see how we're performing from what we're spending, we can't afford to play there. And eventually some of those markets will come around and say, well, we'll share this, we'll share that. And I think sticking to your guns, making sure that you understand, what your key KPIs are, and making sure that you get the data to support those, because ultimately, it's going to be us that are accountable to talk to the leadership team about what we did with the advertising funds that we were given and what the results that we're getting from that are. So, I would just say, stick with that, and that may mean that you're temporarily going to leave a retailer and come back to them if they're able to offer you the data that you need for the conversion. But I think it's more important to make sure that you get the data that you're going to need to make that evaluation than to be in a particular market just because they have a large percentage there.
Jonice, how about for you?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my approach is a little bit different. So I look at things from the consumer standpoint, and I'm in a recently new role in a retail media. Prior to this at GP, I was on our national media team. So I look at this from the consumer standpoint, and as a consumer, an ad is an ad. They don't know if it's coming from Walmart. They don't know if it's coming from Amazon. They just see your brand logo and they don't know what's behind it. So to me, the lines continue to blur, or they're already blended together on what is national and what is retail dollars. And as more of the retailers go after those national dollars, they have to prove their value. They have to prove that they're able to align with your KPIs and achieve those goals. And then there's an opportunity to secure them. So I would say, like, in the pie of $100, maybe you might be 50% retail, 50% national. I think that line is going to continue to blur and go like 75, maybe 80% retail, 25% national. But to the consumer, they're all going to still see the same thing. And as long as you're able to hit your specific goals and objectives, then there will be success there.
Okay, and how about for you, Michelle?
I would agree in both cases. And to Mike's point, I too have worked with brand GMs who have said, yeah, no data, no spend, forget it. It's not that important to me until I know that it's working for me, and I don't know if it's working if I don't have the data or I can't optimize it efficiently. But I think another layer to add is the world of sales and retail negotiations is changing. So I think it's really important that we as retail media experts educate our sales teams on how media is driving the business, how it's integrating into the shopper marketing plans overall, so that they can have informed conversations with their buyers. And this becomes a layer of that conversation, because it's not just about trade anymore or, in-store display. Like, media is now like 90% of our shopper marketing budgets. So it's got to play a bigger role in our sales story.
Got it. Well, let me bring in Steve now. See if we have any questions here.
Hi guys, we wanted to ask about, first of all, I wanted to pick up on Mike's point about you have a product line where you really are looking for that aftermarket sale. And I'm curious, how does that work with some of your retail media partners in terms of being, not only selling that initial product, but then following through with those consumers to make sure that you're getting that brand loyalty long term. In terms of, what sort of plan does that look like for when you're working with a retailer?
So it's really about the program agreement that you have with them. So, you can't base it all on the upfront hardware. You're also basing it off of those long-term supplies that go with that hardware as well. And so when you look at the benefits that they're getting from the program, it's not just, the upfront product that's sold, but also the supplies that go with that. And so it's the balance of how that's written. And as Michelle mentioned, that's really where working with the sales team and having them educated in the program agreements is really important of, how the end result's going to come. And because then they're motivated to get the right customer for you as well, instead of just getting the units from a hardware standpoint, that they're also motivated to get the right customer such that the supplies are going to come with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to add to that point too, as you're developing.
This is the problem. It's not just Mike's, but that idea of that sort of building brand loyalty within these environments is critical for everybody.
I just want to let Michelle, I think, wanted to add
Go ahead,
something.
Michelle.
Oh, just within the plans too, this is back to that transparency of understanding your audience and having your trial campaigns versus your retention campaigns and getting really specific about who you're targeting. I think with some retailers that's easier than others, but targeting is so crucial. And that's sometimes the data they don't want to give us, because we know that purchase-based data drives 3 times higher ROI than any other form of targeting in any CPG company. So it's so valuable to them, but we need to see that like deep level of detail so that we can not only grow our category, but then we can retain those customers and get them to come back and purchase more.
And how is this being organized internally? Does this take different skill sets, different set of teams? You've all mentioned that there's an explosion of options now. That's a lot to manage, especially compared to a lot of these highly automated environments that we're so used to. So I'm curious, how and where is this organized, and what sort of pressure is it putting on your staffing?
I can speak to that. For me, and I think Michelle kind of brought it up earlier, it's a lot about education. I would say a good chunk of my time is spending time with our internal sales team, educating them about the why. So this is why those partners are asking you for dollars. This is why the CPMs are higher. This is just the explaining like the implications of everything. Because as media continues to increase in terms of like shopper investment, it's not necessarily, especially in this digital world that we're living in, it's not if you can have an end cap or a shelf talker or stuff like that. It's where am I located on .com? Am I easy to find versus my competitors? Do I have to pay a higher CPC to be featured or anything like that? So just making sure that they're understanding the implications and at least some of the kind of acronyms and buzzwords that are in the space before they can kind of bring me in and just say, okay, talk to my media person and figure out those fine details.
That sounds a lot like the conversations I had with publishers 15 years ago when they had to train all of their legacy salespeople in a whole different language.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it. That's what we got.
Great. You guys were awesome. It was
this was great.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate it. Really good information for everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.